Hello, NeXT community, NeXT Dimension board owners, and Justin and Chris, my two customers. Okay, so I wanted to show you, we got Dimension board in slot 2, Dimension board in slot 4, both showing 32 megs of RAM, right? And then it shows it's running, let's see, where's that? Right here. But it's also smart enough to know that the monitor is disconnected. Where did I see that here? Right here. So it knows that the second monitor is disconnected. So we've got a dual dimension system. But the great news is I now have both dimensions up and running with 32 megs of RAM. And the fail to reset error, I think, was a bad stick of RAM or a mismatched pair. Now, on these RAM chips, you can identify 70 nanosecond, 70 nano. So I kind of look for similar printing, okay, manufacturing and chips here, and then match them up in pairs. And, you know, although they look really close, they can be entirely different manufacturers, or within the same manufacturer, they'll have different speeds, you know, 70 nanosecond, 80 nanosecond, 100 nanosecond, even 60, and now there's 50s. And the problem with that is, NeXT really likes 70 nanosecond sims to optimize performance. It'll read 60s, but they register as 100 nanosecond, which is slower, okay? And so 70 is optimal, and you have to have matching sets. And also with the Dimension board, I read on one blurb that you need 4 instead of sets of 2 of the same identical. I am not sure if that is true. I seem to think that everything is in pairs, but I'll just go with it. It was on an old FAQ. And RAM back then was in the stratosphere. NeXT never officially sanctioned 64 megs of VRAM, which was years ahead of its time. Okay, there was nothing like that in a video card until the late 90s. And Dimension boards came out in about 90,91. You know, the first ones appeared. And so the differences in these two Dimension boards, the earlier models had metal clips, and the later models had plastic clips. And that was part of NeXT's cost-cutting measures. I also have, working with a Zulu SCSI SD. Apologies, this is how my desk, or work area winds up, because I'm doing so many projects as just one guy. But as you can see, we've got color over here on the Dimension board, which is really neat. And monochrome, which is off the main motherboard here. So you have a DB19 connector, okay? And that's our custom cable that goes to the flat panel and then over to a NeXT sound box. And you always need a sound card because NeXT was the first computer company to offer CD quality sound. So it was a quality sound card, right? And before then, most computers just went beep. But with NeXT, you could actually do CD quality recording and playback, which was years ahead of its time. And that was with, a partnership with Sony. So these are the first computer sound cards capable of that. And then you plug your keyboard in, which makes it proprietary because it's what's called a non-ADB NeXT keyboard. And then you've got the non-ADB NeXT mouse. The very last versions, the turbos, they added in ADB. And from my understanding, Wozniak wrote the drivers for that, for NeXT. Not many people know that. And that was only on the TurboCube V74, the very last version before NeXT shut down their hardware production line. With the Dimension boards, I've seen some really cool stuff and hooked up some really cool stuff as well. Like you can watch TV on them. You can play laser discs. You can do S-video. There's PAL versions of the Dimension board. These two are NTSC. We've done new caps on both for the customers. And then, I've seen security systems hooked up. I mean, there were even television stations back in the day running on these and what are called IR cam boards. So, that being said, I am very happy to get both working. I was kind of stressed out a little bit, and both customers are going to be very happy as well. The board that I had, I knew was good, but when I had a customer, Justin, sent in his boards, and he was having issues with them, but he's going to be really psyched I've got it working. So thank you very much for your continued support on the page and watching my crazy makeshift videos. But I have a lot of fun doing it. My heart's in it, and I'm always learning. 31 years later, I know that fail to reset error has to do with RAM. It's either mismatched or a bad stick of RAM. So now my challenge is updating both of these to 64 megs of RAM without losing my mind, and hopefully they will work. Stay tuned.